A lot of people from the Barossa came from Silesia or Eastern Germany, which is now part of Poland. They were called Silesians, and they came out to start the settlement in the Barossa in about 1838, 1840, and brought with them the skills for winemaking. So look around you, beautiful vineyards, beautiful wines, but they also brought the lethal gene for familial hypercholesterolemia, or FH. And we've recognized that in now 6th generation descendants of these people, they have the problem of FH. And we look back on their family histories and we trace them right back to the 1800s, and the people from Silesia brought the gene out with them in the mid-1800s. So we now know that many people in the Barossa of German descent have this FH gene, which we're trying to detect in this study.
This is myself and all my brothers here. Myself here, we all, as far as I'm aware, have high cholesterol, and it's just part of the family.
Various branches of my family come from these areas that he's been referring to, so there is a possibility, when I look back through the limited amount of family history that I know of, there are occasions where people have died before their allocated 10, some in their 40s, some in their 50s.
Thanks for bringing this family history. Can you show us that book again and explain what it's about? And perhaps I can show it to the camera, just the heading of the book, and tell us what that says.
Hopner.
Yep.
Hopner, which later became Hepner. The O was dropped, and then became Hepner. And that may have been during the Second World War, when some of the German families changed their names. Mm-hmm. Some of the towns around here changed their names as well. Right. Because there was a bit of pressure on them to do that.
So you're a typical Silesian descendant of early immigrants in 1841 or 1842, yes, with a family history of early death.
Yes, there are some people who died well below what should have been their allocated 10.
Okay, yeah. Can you tell us about that?
I've already gone past that, by the way.
Oh, good.
I'm 72, so I've survived 2 years more than what I've been allocated.
In spite of your high cholesterol?
Well, that's being treated.
Well, there you are. That's the point. If you treat the high cholesterol, you can live a normal life expectancy. But tell us about your relatives. They died early, some of them died early?
Perhaps the most significant one is my brother, who hasn't actually died, but he had a triple bypass at age 49.
Right.
He's now 69.
You don't know his cholesterol level?
No, I don't, but I shall, now that you've put me onto all of this, I shall now be talking to him about that.
Okay. And
also about perhaps the cholesterol level of his family.
And you have children?
And I need to talk to them about that as well.
So you need to talk to a lot of people.
You've only made me aware of this again in recent weeks.
Yes.
And I thought I'd do a little bit more research first and find out how many of these people actually died early. Yep. And then I shall be talking to my son and daughters.
And if they have children?
They do. They all have children.
Okay. Well, if they have high cholesterol, of course, their children can be tested.
Yes.
So you're the 6th generation of the original immigrants?
Yes, I am.
So we can go as far as the 8th generation to test cholesterol.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
That's right.
You also had a map of where they came from.
Yeah, and I'll just turn to that map,
because
this is rather interesting, because various branches of our family came from these 3 areas.
Perhaps if I can turn that around and just show that to the camera. And yes, they came from 3 areas, John, you were saying?
That's right. Various branches came from Posen, Brandenburg and Silesia.
Right. Okay.
And I think your research has found that each one of these are potential
FH sources. Yes, exactly.
Yes, that's right. So sadly, I'm connected to each one of those.
But you had other people. Your uncle, I think. You talked about your uncle.
I had an uncle who died in his 50s. There's no recorded information there of what they actually died from. Yes. But he died in his 50s.
Yeah. So we actually look back to the family history of people who live now, and we see early deaths from whatever cause in the 50s, 40s, and we presume that they may have had FH. So that's our way of looking back towards the family history. This is an illustration of the historic background to the Barossa Family Heart Study. Here is King William III, the King of Prussia in the mid-1800s, who brought out a book for the church which Pastor Carvel's flock didn't really agree with. So there were problems with that. He decided to leave the country with his flock, went to George Angus in London, who financed the expedition. And here's the map of where the Germans came from, essentially from Silesia, a province between Brandenburg and Saxony on the southeast of Germany. They came to South Australia and went initially to Klemzig. So here's a map, a drawing of Klemzig, 1842. And you can see they built this village very quickly. Within 3 or 4 years, they'd had 30 houses of this sophistication built. So that illustrates the industry and the technology of these people when they arrived in South Australia. They're amazing. So here is a map of where the Germans settled in Australia, and you'll see that in South Australia there's a very large congregation of villages around the Barossa area, also in northern Victoria, southern Victoria and southern New South Wales. So they settled all over Australia essentially, also to Queensland. So we think the Barossa Family Heart Study extends not only in South Australia but to other states in this country. But there's one other very important point. I'll show you another map. Where is it? Here it is. Have a look at this map. This is a map of Texas. The area between Austin and Houston has a large number of villages also settled by the same Prussian immigrants. So we think there's a connection not only to other states in Australia but to Texas, also to South Africa and to Nebraska in the US. So we will be extending this study to other countries.
Yeah,
all right.
That's fine. Okay, when you're ready.
This is a book published in 1979 called The Eckerts of Tower, in which the family history of the Eckerts is very described in a lot of detail. And if you open it up to certain pages, you'll see that I've marked people with early deaths, 50s, 57, 46, and these people have FH. And if you look through the family histories, you'll see quite a few people affected, which I've marked. And you can actually use these family histories to go back and determine people with FH in ancestors.
I was about 28 years of age when I first found out about the cholesterol, and we found out through my mother. I don't know exactly how she found out or anything like that, but when a mother sends you a letter, you must obey, because mothers always know best. Since that time I've had treatment for the FH, ranging right across the various types of medication that have become available at the various times in the past, well, 40 years. So I can't remember what the first ones were, but as the type of medication changed, the doctors, the specialists that I was seeing, changed me to that specialist or specialised type of medication, and it seems to have worked, because the cholesterol that I had was the uncontrollable type. In other words, you can't control it by just what you eat and so on. It had to be done with medication, and it has brought it down from, I don't know, it was up around 11 or 12 when I first started off on the courses, and it's now down to around about the 4 or maybe even lower.
FH is a condition with high cholesterol levels which are of genetic origin. So the condition's passed down from one family parents to the children in a genetic fashion. So it's more common than we used to think, probably more common than type 1 diabetes. Now everybody knows about type 1 diabetes. It's a common condition requiring insulin. FH, or familial hypercholesterolemia, is even more common than type 1 diabetes. It often goes unreported. People don't know they've got it. It isn't detected as often as it should be, and it isn't treated as well as it should be. So that's one of the reasons why this study is being carried out, to improve the situation for people with FH. So if we look at this picture of an abdominal aorta, you'll see it looks terribly moth-eaten, irregular surface, areas of clotting on the surface. The yellow areas are cholesterol, and the white areas are fibrous tissue and calcium. So this is a very, very advanced artery disease caused by high cholesterol. This is what happens in an angiogram, and you'll see that there's about a 90% block shown by the arrow. This is because at that point there's a plaque due to cholesterol deposition, and you'll see over here the sort of story that happens. Here's the normal artery, here's the cholesterol plaque, which we see in the angiogram, and if we look at it with a cross-section in a microscope, you'll see this is all deposition of cholesterol and fibrous tissue. Another example here, all these spaces are cholesterol crystals that have been taken out in preparing the section. So this is the total story of high cholesterol in familial hypercholesterolemia, and you can see that it's a problem that takes several decades, but if you treat cholesterol, the whole process can be reversed or prohibited. People who have FH, who are detected early and treated early, can have a life expectancy without heart disease, without stroke, and without peripheral disease. These series of pictures illustrate what is the problem in FH. It's essentially a problem with the DNA. Here's a molecule of DNA, which is two strands of DNA joined together, and one of these molecules in the DNA is defective. That does not produce the LDL receptor, which acts like a vacuum cleaner on the surface of the liver, taking out cholesterol from the blood. So here's a molecule of cholesterol, of LDL particularly, which is the bad cholesterol. Here is the LDL cholesterol in the blood. Here is the receptor, and normally the cholesterol goes onto the receptor, sticks on, and is taken in. So that's the vacuum cleaner effect. When one has FH, the vacuum cleaners are defective, half of these receptors are absent, and so the blood cholesterol is doubled, and therefore the hardening of the arteries, the thickening of the artery wall, and the coronary heart disease and heart attacks. So that's basically the simple reason for FH. It's quite easy to identify people with FH simply by measuring cholesterol levels. So that's very easy to do. If you are of German descent, if you would like to see if you've got this gene, then go to your general practitioner, have a cholesterol measured. And then if the cholesterol is very high, for example double what it should be, you can then have a DNA test or a gene test to prove whether you've got the condition. But it's very likely if you have a family history of early heart attack, a very high cholesterol, and also some evidence of high cholesterol that we can see that you have FH. In order to recognize FH or familial hypercholesterolemia without doing a cholesterol test, it's possible. Here are the signs of high cholesterol. First of all, the white ring on the outside of the eye, called arcus senilis. That's in an advanced situation. Here's the very early beginning of the ring in a young person. In quite advanced disease, you can get cholesterol deposits in the tendons at the back of the knuckles. So if you move your knuckles, these bumps go up and down. And over here with the red arrows, yellow spots of cholesterol on the inside of the upper eyelids. All of those are typical signs of very high cholesterol levels. In carrying out the study, we will detect people with FH who previously didn't know they had the condition. So we're going to detect people who could be treated, therefore we can save lives, we can prolong life, and also, which I think is very important, we can increase awareness in the community of the condition, and also awareness among general practitioners, because they're the people who have to actually handle the condition. And also, in helping management of FH, we've written a model of care, which is a document published in Atherosclerosis, which is a medical journal, and also the Australian Family Physician Journal, to help general practitioners manage FH. So we can now move ahead, we have a model of care to follow, and we can look at a very cost-effective way of treating high cholesterol levels to prevent heart disease.